Hi, everyone. This is Mihaela with Hey Startup Podcast. The reason why I'm doing this interview on the Piers Morgan interview with Andrew Tate, whom I haven't heard of before just a couple of days ago, to find out that he's the most Googled man on the internet. And I was wondering who he is, what does he have to say? And once I did, I was taken aback. Then I find out that he moved to Romania. This guy has nothing to do with Romania, so he has no background in Romania. But he says that he moved to Romania because in Romania, everybody can be bought. There's corruption in every department. And he moved there because of it. And I'm always wondering, why is it that when the news come out on TV or online, Romania is being seen in a negative way? As you all know, I am from Romania. I think it's a beautiful country. I love my country. So when somebody goes and puts down the country that I'm from, I'm going to listen to see who the person is and get to understand why he says that he moved there due to the fact that he doesn't have to respect rules, because in Romania, rules are broken because you can buy everybody. You can bribe people, having to do with the communist regime that we all lived under for so many years, where everything, and I know from personal experience, was bought. You went to a doctor to get better care. You would buy a carton of cigarettes at that time, which did not exist in Romania, of Marlboros or whatever the Western provided. You would get them and you would give to the doctor so he can operate on you a little bit better than if you did not. If you went to school and you wanted to get a good grade in school, I know people who were bribing the teachers. So I understand that that was happening during the communist regime, but I didn't know that it was still the same. I thought that since the revolution, which happened 30 years ago, not 10 years ago, as I would like to think, because I'm in denial of how much time has passed, things have changed. But from what he says, not so much on this interview, but things that I found about him online, he says that there's corruption in Romania everywhere. He can say whatever he wants. He can do whatever he wants because he doesn't have to be responsible for any of those rules or regulations, and he doesn't have to partake and be a responsible human being. But then he comes on Piers Morgan show. I think that the interview with Piers Morgan that went on for an hour and 15 minutes, which I'm not going to go through all of it because it's a repetitive question, repetitive answer. I think Piers Morgan could have done a little better and be more direct in his asking the questions, rather than repeat the same question over and over again and let the guy give the answer that had nothing to do with the question that he was asking. I love Piers Morgan's interview style. I don't agree with all the politics or his ideology when it comes to a lot of things that he says, but I think he's a great interviewer until interviewing this guy whom I feel he's letting him get off too easy in so many ways. So I'm just going to go through it, and then I'm going to speak from the point of view of an acting coach. What do I think of this character by the name of Andrew Tate, who happens to live in my country, Romania? If I were to analyze his character, because if I was doing a film and he was the character in my film that I was directing, and I would want to do analysis on who this character is, you take the reactions to understand what that is. Did you guys see the reaction to what Piers Morgan just described them to be? The number one searched on Google even before Donald Trump. There was a reaction. The way that Andrew Tate reacted was one of accomplishment, satisfaction. He's already looking in the camera. He's not looking at Piers Morgan. He's very aware of knowing that he's got an audience on this big platform. So he's going to be taking advantage of it. He wants to be known. He is satisfied with the introduction that Piers Morgan made. He's savoring it. He's smiling to the camera. Here's Piers Morgan, but he looks in the camera. Yes, right. I am one of the most Googled people. His subtext. Let me look into the camera and let me appreciate those people who are Googling me. That would be my understanding of his reaction in that moment of him being introduced. He's very satisfied with his understanding of who he is on social media. Very much so. He's more interested in pleasing, in actually addressing and making a connection with the camera, with the viewers, rather than with Piers Morgan. The reason why he uses the word I exploded, because he is revealing the satisfaction that he has with his becoming famous on the internet. He's also going back to say that he's worked a lot to be at the status where he is on social media. He says that the reason why he exploded, he uses the word exploded again, which gives me the understanding that he's very satisfied with what he attained. And his reason for attaining that is that he's speaking what most of men, paraphrasing, are thinking but are afraid of saying. He knows that what he is saying is going to be disturbing, is going to be against the norm, is going to be against the political correctness that most people abide by. If I were to say everything that I wanted to say that comes into my mind, then I'm responsible for that I'm saying, especially if I know that it's going to be misunderstood by certain people. There is no responsibility on his part that he's actually taken at this point to say, I know that some of the things that I say are what most people want to say, and I can understand how they can also be misunderstood by some people. And to those people, I want to say, pay more attention to my whole context in which those comments that are being considered to be toxic or being considered to be misogynistic or considered to be against a certain group of women in the age of whatever he's going to continue to talk about. So I think he's liking the fact that he's getting so much attention. I think he was working towards it. That would be my interpretation of the character, and that would be my discussion with the actor if there was a character to be worked on who happened to be this guy. So the actor who would play this guy, if I were to do a work on him, this is the conversation I would have with the actor. I would ask the actor the question of, why do you think this platform that you are on has made you so famous, and how are you feeling about becoming famous for saying things that are against what majority of people believe? I think he's thriving in it, and I think he's so satisfied, and I think he's holding on to the controversy of what he is inspiring because he wanted to be the most Google man on the internet, and he is just taking that in and loving it. I think Piers Morgan missed the opportunity of actually reading his reaction and confronting him with the same thing that I was saying. You're smiling about it, he could have said. I see that you're very, very satisfied with your position. Do you take pleasure? Do you enjoy being the most Googled man on the internet? Because I see a smile on your face. That's what I think Piers Morgan should have said. You have to pay attention to the listening of your guest, not only to what he's saying. There's so much more being said when a guest is listening. There's so many more giveaways. When we do not have the words to hide behind and we're just listening to what other people are saying about us, we reveal so much more of who we are because you don't have the words as a cover that you can hide behind. In acting, when other characters speak about a certain character, watching the character listen to what the other characters are saying about him is as important, if not more important, than when the character is actually speaking. Listening gives away much more into that person than when they're speaking because they're open. They have no facade. They have no facade. They have no cover, which in this situation happened to be the words that he will continue to repeat and repeat and repeat. Okay, before we go into each of the things that he's been controversial about in what he's saying, what the opportunity is missed with Piers Morgan in interviewing this guy is take the words that he is describing himself to be. The words which you will hear over and over again in the interview, he, Andrew, is very much repetitive in acknowledging the massive fame that he has achieved. I have achieved, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says, yes, massively famous, looks at the camera again, looks at the audience. He doesn't even acknowledge Piers Morgan in the question. Piers Morgan could have at that moment looked at him and said, why are you not looking at me? I'm right here. You're talking to me. Why are you looking in the camera to address the people, to continue on the same route, to maintain that massive fame? How does that make you feel that you're being Googled by more people than anybody else in this world? How does it feel that you are massively famous because you keep bringing that up? By not doing that, Piers Morgan is playing into what Andrew knows to do. He knows how to go around the questions and not be direct about it. He's afraid to take responsibility and be direct about his statements that he has made on the internet, on all social platforms that have canceled him. So Piers Morgan has kind of disappointed me. I thought that he was going to be more prepared to react to this guy. The actor's job in a conversation with another character, there's one character, there's another character. Again, if this was a scene and I was working on as a director or as an acting coach, better as an acting coach, I would tell the character Piers Morgan to be more specific about his questions, because the character that he's questioning is different than all the other guests. So he's got to go after him in order to get him to be more direct in a more specific way by addressing the things that Andrew is actually revealing to him. He's revealing the fact that he's massively famous over and over again. He's looking at the camera, not looking at Piers Morgan. That's the perfect timing for Piers Morgan to say, I'm here, look at me. Character, the other character. If I were on stage with another character and the character would look at the audience, I'd be like, don't look at the audience. You have to convince me of what you're saying. And what is it that you're saying, Andrew? When you say massively famous, you've become so massively famous. What does that do to you? Because you seem to thrive in that feeling. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Come on, Piers Morgan. Come on, who the heck is this guy? Because he is talking about moving to Romania, because in Romania, if you go to the police and you say somebody raped me, I don't know how many years ago, the police doesn't give a damn about it, or they will say, well, you should have come then and not now. And I think when somebody brings Romania into the light on such a big platform and they link it to negativity, it's just driving me insane, because Piers Morgan should have said, how do the Romanians feel about you saying that? How is it that you are speaking or are putting down a country as beautiful as Romania and saying that everybody in Romania doesn't respect the law? Is that something that happens everywhere? Is that something that happens with everybody in Romania? Do you think that it's fair that you're putting down the entire country that you then choose to live in? So you're saying negative things about this country, but then you choose to live there. Why didn't you say that to him, Piers? That's what you should have done. You should have asked him that. Don't just let this pass, because then you would have put him in a situation that he wasn't actually prepared to enter, because he came prepared to enter only those things that were being put out by him in the media, which already people are talking about to be toxic and to be dangerous in some capacity to people who take them for what he's saying. If you would have just surprised them in the moment by saying, okay, hold on a second, you're talking about Romania as a country who's really, really bad, but at the same time, this is the country that you choose to live in. How do you put those two things together? And how do you feel about making a home in Romania, but then talking badly about your home? What does that say about who you are as a person? What does that say about who you are? That question was never raised, because Piers Morgan has already prepared what his questions are going to be. And Andrew knew what the questions are going to be, because he's been asked those questions, I assume, in all the other things that he's done, all the other interviews. So he wasn't really taking him off of his path. He wasn't even spontaneously coming to him directly. So he would not know in that moment. He would have to come up with another answer than the answers that he had prepared. It makes me mad when somebody does that. I mean, can you just say all the wonderful things that Romanians have and Romania is? It's a beautiful freaking country. And the people are amazing. Why are you going on to the next question, Piers Morgan? You can go on to the next question when you yourself, you're asking him to not be misogynistic in the way that he talks about the situation of women. You're letting him know that the statements that he makes online to some men who are not as intelligent. So you're calling men who are paying attention to what he says online to be stupid. You're doing the same thing that he's actually doing, and then you're condemning him for it. So why are you saying that there might be men online who would not be able to understand what he's doing because he's smart, and the men who are listening to him are not smart? You're putting men down while you're condemning him for putting women down. You're actually both saying horrible things, in my opinion. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Keep saying newfound fame, because he is thriving. He's so thrilled to be in this fame. That's what his goal was. He was always wanting to be that. Didn't matter that he was influencing people in a bad way. It didn't matter the way that he got there. This is what his objective was always. That would be my interpretation of him as a character. So instead of going back and forth about, do you believe women to be property? And then he dismisses the question and he says, well, the tradition of the wedding is father walks down the woman to the altar, and then once the father gets to the altar, he hands her over to the husband. But he never continues to say, which means that she becomes the property. So he's explaining a tradition that happens in different religions, and instead of putting a stop to him not even answering the question, Piers Morgan allows him to say that over and over again, and it's repetitive and it's boring. You should have just taken out your phone, Piers Morgan, and you should have said, okay, just give me 1 second. Let's just look at the word property. Property. The definition of the word property is a thing or things belonging to someone. Possessions, a thing or things belonging to someone. You should have just taken out your phone, Piers Morgan, and you should have read him the definition. Do you believe that your sister, in what he said, is a property of her husband, is what the definition of property means? Do you think that she belongs, he owns her? Rather than allow him to go to the Quran or allow him to skip the question, it's becoming like so general a conversation between the two of them that in acting that would not be accepted, because you have to be detailed. You have to have a conversation. You have to have a conversation that's going to require your mind to be so alert to what the other character is saying. If you're thinking about the exercise of Meisner technique, that's what the exercise of Meisner technique is. It's about being alert and having all your senses being completely alert in your mind and your being to what the other person is saying, and repeating what the other person is saying to make sure that the person knows that you have understood exactly what they meant. That would not allow for this general communication back and forth where the question is, do you believe women to be property of men? And he goes into, oh, there are the tradition in weddings where the woman, I'm not going to repeat that. I would catch that person, him, in this case, as being the character, if he were a character, and I would say, you are not answering the question in a specific way. General answers are not sufficient. You are smarter than that. You consider yourself to be an intelligent, smart man, massively famous, which you like to say over and over again. So please, specifically, by looking at the definition of property, do you believe that women are the property of men? Piers Morgan doesn't do that. He just lets him get away with it. Instead of saying, you're speaking of a tradition, I'm speaking of what you said, which is that the property of the men are women. And you believe that that's the truth. So finally, if he says, I believe that she belongs to the man in marriage. So you do agree. So you just said that she belongs to the man in marriage. So you believe that she's a property. So let's leave alone the traditions that you keep wanting to go to, because you're not answering directly what I'm asking you. Let's leave to the side the tradition of what you speak about in the Quran and the religions. And you have just agreed that this is what you believe, that the women are property of men. Let's move on. Why are you repeating everything all over again? The segment is over. The beat was over. As actors, that was the beat. You have beaten down the beat. if that makes any sense. Let's move on to the next thing, because now, Piers, you're giving him space that he hasn't earned. You're going back to the same beat that you have already worked with him, and you got him to explain himself the best way that he was able to, without assuming responsibility. Because by assuming responsibility, by saying directly, yes, I believe that women are properties of men, he's afraid of the backlash that he's going to get for that. But at the same time, he doesn't want to say, I don't believe in it, because he knows that him stating that is one of the things that made him famous. Let it go. Don't be a weak interviewer by allowing him to take you back into the first beat. Move on to the next beat. Move on to the next segment. Rather than do this interview for 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is so repetitive. Please, come on, you're a good interviewer. What the hell is happening here? He just took the bait from him. If an actor would say that to me, the other actor on stage, I would say, that's bullshit. You are just putting two things together that don't go together, because you are trying to stay somewhere in the middle to keep your fame, your massive fame. And at the same time, you don't want to be saying something that's directly offending to people now that you are on this platform. Let's move on. That's all you had to say, Piers Morgan, instead of going over this another, I don't know how many minutes. Hold on a second. He's not trying to do anything. You're the one that's being evasive about answering the direct questions. Authority, when he's asking you if you have authority, like you said in your statement, over women, this is what authority means, Piers Morgan. You should have taken out your phone again. The power or the right to give orders, to make decisions, and enforce obedience. He had absolute authority over his subordinates. The power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. That's what authority means. Take out the phone, Piers Morgan, and give him the definition. So he doesn't have the space that you are allowing him to come up with this bullshit in the way that he's answering, without giving you a straight, direct answer, because he's trying to be with his one foot in one boat and the other foot in the other boat, because he's trying to please now the people that might be against him, but at the same time, he doesn't want to lose his fame and massive fortune that he's making by making these statements, which are offensive. You're not putting him in the light by calling him out for what he is and who he is. So you're standing back from doing that, because why are you doing that? Because you're probably afraid of the same thing, Piers Morgan? Are you trying to play to both sides? I don't understand. This is really bad. You're saying that he's interrupting you every 5 seconds because you are upset, because you know in your heart that you're not giving him the answers. Answer directly to what he's saying. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. And this goes on and it goes on, because they happen to have this platform, and it goes on for like 1 hour and 15 minutes. And it's just, they're going in circles. If this was on a stage, or if this was in a film, you would shut down that, because it would be boring, repetitive, because you guys are not being honest with each other. You're both trying to please everyone, and you cannot please everyone. You have to take risks in interviews, the same way that you have to take risks as actors, with the consequence of maybe losing a part of the audience, but you have to take the risk. My goodness, it's unbelievable. I mean, how is this happening? And it's going on for 1 hour and 50 minutes, when if a movie of this interview were to be done, people would walk out of the audience, because nobody's being honest to each other. That has nothing to do with the word authority. Andrew Tate, who lives in Romania and puts down Romania at the same time. You have responsibility to be there for a woman. That's your belief. That has nothing to do with you having authority. The authority word doesn't have anything to do with you providing safety for your woman. So why are you speaking as if all of us are stupid? The audience is not stupid. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Stop beating around the bush. You're not being honest. Believe in one thing. I don't understand how these people on social media are considering you to be unafraid with what you're believing, when you're actually not believing in anything. You're somewhere in between beliefs. How is everybody looking up to you on social media? I don't understand that. You're not saying one direct statement that you stand behind, which means that you're taking no responsibility for that you are supposedly taking responsibility for, and so many people admire you. I don't even understand how massively famous happened to you, to be honest. Do the Meisner exercise with him, Piers Morgan. How do you do the Meisner exercise with somebody like that? Why don't you use the tools of the acting, of what acting, the craft of acting provides, to get him to actually speak to you directly and not hide behind statements that have no consequences, because he's trying to play both sides. You give a woman the protection is not authority. You just said that you want to be there as a man to protect the woman, God forbid, in a physical situation, but that does not equal to you having authority over the woman. The fact that you're adding that you have authority, which the definition of authority you do not know, is because you want to become famous and you want to make statements that will bring you to the fame that you so desire. Say that. You, Piers Morgan, should be asking him, why is he dragging these words into his statements when the definition of the words that he's using have nothing to do with what he's saying? So why drag authority over a woman, property over a woman? Why do you do that? Is it because that's what gained you the fame on the internet? Why don't you address that, Piers Morgan? And this interview goes around and around in a circle. In any situation of two actors doing this interview, it would have been stopped. We would have had a conversation about why this is going in circles and why we're not directly responding to each other. They're not responding to each other because they're not listening to each other. He's in his own interview. The other one is in his own interview. That's what would be said about the two actors. You're not in the same world. You're acting, and there's no connection. Why are you doing that? Because you have to pay attention to the person who's against you or across the table from you, and you have to respond to that person. If not, go do a monologue, and you go do a monologue. That's not called an interview. That's not called a scene. You have an English accent when you come in, and good for you. I cannot believe that you're actually giving him so much time on this platform, Piers Morgan, because he's not even paying attention to you. The guy is there looking straight at the camera, like I said from the beginning. He is not assuming any responsibility that an actor would have to assume responsibility for the character that he's portraying, for the role that he is attempting. And you're asking for this guy all the questions that he knows you're going to be asking, and you're giving him not a spontaneous reply. You're not going moment by moment by moment by moment. When he is telling you that he desires, or most men desire, women who are 18 rather than women who are 25, then what is the next question that you could have asked rather than say, is that a misogynistic statement? That he already knows that you would have asked, because he's been asked the same question by other interviewers. Why didn't you go deeper to say, what made you say that? Personally, specifically, Andrew, can you tell us more insightful understanding of why you consider that to be the truth? Specifically, personally, put it on him. Don't let him get away with it as if it's a statement that he just kind of generally put in the air, and he doesn't have to be responsible for it. Put it in personal understanding for the audience. Why? Have you had any experiences in your life with women that you consider to be more attractive, which are the women in their whatever age, than to the women who are a little bit older? Is that something that has to do with you personally? Can you go into that? Please. As soon as you would have said that, you would have stopped him in his track, and you would have stopped him off of his path of going in between and not answering anything directly, because he doesn't want to be held responsible when the interview is over, and because he's trying to please the audience. He gives so much importance to the audience and being liked. He's looking at the audience all the time directly. He wants their approval. Actors are told not to look at the audience. That's why there's the fourth wall. That's why there's the imaginary wall, because you have to pay attention to the person who's talking to you. He's not talking to you because you've provided a platform for him where he can get the satisfaction of being paid attention to, which is what he wanted all along, and he achieved. Good for him. He achieved massive fame, like he said. He doesn't care about the way that he achieved that. If the ways to getting fame doesn't matter, then Good for him that he doesn't give a shit. But he does give a shit. He does care. Because now he's trying to please everybody. He's trying to please both this audience and that. And you're not putting it on him. He would have been put in a different situation of answering if you allowed him to be more specific and just say, can you be more specific? What personally in your life triggered you to come to that conclusion? What? I'm listening. Put him in that light. The interview is just going on and on and on and on and on and on. And nothing has been achieved. Nothing at all has been achieved. You have to have a goal. You have to have an overall objective as an actor to be able to achieve something. There has to be a transformation. There has to be an arc as actors. And this interview goes on and on and on and on and on, and he does absolutely none of those things. Okay, Piers Morgan, again, why didn't you ask him directly? Can you think of a woman in your life who's 25 years old right now? Can you imagine that woman to be in front of you? And can you imagine addressing her right now and telling her how by being 25, she's not good enough or she's not attractive enough because she's had too many men in the past? Imagine doing that. Can you do that? Because an actor will have to actually practically do that. Theory and talk is easy. Put him in a situation where he has to actually put himself in a personal moment with somebody that he knows from his own life and say that. Take somebody from your personal life. Take somebody that you care about. Do you know anybody in your life who's 25? And would you be able to look at her and say that? Do it now. Look in the camera, because I see you looking at the camera. You're not even making him aware that you see that he's looking at the camera, Piers. Make him aware that you see that he's interested in getting attention from the people and making the audience like him. What does that say about his need to be famous and to be liked? We all have that. I'm not saying that we don't want to be liked or we don't have the need to be famous or we don't want to be appreciated. But recognizing that is something that he doesn't have. It's almost like he talks about everything that he is and he's doing without the realization and without the statement that should be made. Yes, I'm enjoying this massive fame. Because then I would have more respect for him in everything else that he's saying, because I would understand why he did it, why he's saying what he's saying. He's not assuming any responsibility for anything that he's saying. He is so needy. He's so needy to be embraced by people that he is walking both. I love that he's bathing himself into making sure that he reminds us how powerful he is, how massively famous he is. He goes back to admitting that over and over again, but he doesn't admit to any of the statements that he made. He doesn't take any responsibility for anything, but he admits to the massive power, to the massive fame. What does that say about his need? He's very needy of having that. So he's trying to keep it. And now seeing that he's being canceled over all the platforms, he's trying to please the side that canceled him, because he's realizing that by pleasing only the other people that got him to be famous, in order to maintain that power and fame, he's got to please the other side that's canceling him. He's just selfishly working to keep what he's achieved. That's all. He doesn't believe any of the things. I don't believe that he believes any of the things that he said. I think he set out to say things to make himself be famous, to make himself be paid attention to. That's what I think it is. Please let me finish, Piers Morgan, but I'm looking at the camera. Please let me finish, Piers Morgan. You're somewhere there. But this is what I don't understand, why people can misunderstand me, because that's not what I said. But you're not saying anything, dude. I don't understand why people are making such a big thing over you, because you're saying absolutely nothing specifically. You are so general in what you're saying that this would be the most considered the most horrible acting anybody's done. Acting meaning being. Because acting, real acting, is not about pretending. It's about actually dealing with what you believe and dealing with what the character believes in a way that will maybe not always make you successful or famous. Now that I'm the most famous man on the planet, how many times are you going to say that? We know it. Why do you keep repeating that you're the most famous person on the planet? Why? Why? Ask him that, Piers Morgan. Why do you have that need? That's what an actor would do, because he would be alert to him making the same comment. So you would say, why do you feel that you have the need to repeat that you're the most famous person? Why do you do that, Andrew Tate? Tell me. And then the interview would have gotten so much better. With power comes responsibility, the same thing. And this is where I'm going to end it, because this is what I meant to tell you. Instead of Piers Morgan relating to that and realizing that he's got an opportunity to get on that, he doesn't. He doesn't see it. He doesn't see it because he's so prepared with the same statements that were made by him that he doesn't even stand by. He's not even admitting to being responsible for, but he's somewhere in the middle because he's so needy to be liked by everybody. And instead of Piers Morgan saying that to him, which any actor would do in a Meisner exercise, you are repeating yourself and seem needy to me. That's what the actor playing opposite Andrew would say to him. And then what would Andrew say back when he has to repeat that back to Piers Morgan, the other character? You say I am needy, and I repeat that I am famous and I'm the most powerful person. And if you go back and forth with those two statements, which he repeats over and over during this whole interview, you would have gotten to a different beat, rather than have the same beat from the beginning to the end for an hour and 15 minutes, beaten over the head over and over again. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. I cannot believe that this guy is given so much importance. I would have thought that if somebody has such strong statements, he would come and have the guts to actually say, yes, I stand by those statements. That would actually put me in a situation where I would look at him and I would say, oh my God, this guy is really crazy. I don't believe in anything that he's saying. But you know what? He's believing in that, what he's saying, and he's taking the risk of being canceled, which he just did. So he had the consequences being taken off of the different social platforms because he believes in something that the rest of the people, or majority of the people, or myself, I should speak for myself, these are only my opinions and my thoughts, don't believe in. But he had the guts to actually stand by what he said. I would have respected him for that more than him coming on Piers Morgan show uncensored and try to play the middle of the central of the two sides, because he is so needy to be liked by the audience and to remain famous and to not be canceled. So he's not standing by anything. He's not assuming responsibility for anything, because he's not directly taking those statements to be what they are. He's trying to find ways around them, generally in a way that is not detailed, not specific, which any actor playing any character would be stopped and asked, what the heck are you doing? Specificity is what is great acting. Specificity is what is great living. Why are you not doing that? Assume responsibility for your character. He's not assuming responsibility. Piers Morgan is not assuming his responsibility to actually be in the moment and respond to him in a way that he is not prepared to answer. I don't even want to talk about it anymore, but I couldn't believe that this interview went on for so long. I was in shock that this interview went on for so long when it could have been ended in the first 15 minutes if they would have been doing the work that great actors do. Play the moment to moment, question, answer, receiving the answer, give him back the specific question that came out of what his answer was, rather than have a idea of what the answers were going to be, no matter what the statements he was going to make were going to be, and still trying to beat those until it was just so boring to watch. The only reason I'm doing this for this episode of Hey Stylites, it's about my understanding of what is happening with two people in real life, and then trying to put them in a scenario where they were two actors playing this monologue, playing the scene back and forth, analyzing it, and telling you that if this was done by two actors in a film, you would not stay for an hour and 15 minutes because the acting would have been so bad. The film would have been completely a flop. Thank you so much, everyone.